what the hell is going on? The Secret Service admitted yesterday, just before President Trump's speech at the United Nations General Assembly, that they found a massive server room with hundreds of SIM cards at a nearby, I don't know, you call it a house, a condominium, somewhere in New York City, went on the location. The Secret Service dismantled a network of more than 300 SIM servers, 100,000 SIM cards in the New York area that were capable of crippling telecom systems, carrying out anonymous telephonic attacks, disrupting the threat before world leaders arrived for the UN General Assembly. What's the goal here? The New York Times posted this. My instinct is this is espionage. Really? Man, the geniuses that the New York Times got, said Mr. Ferrante, who previously served as a top cybersecurity position in the White House at the FBI. You think it wasn't? Come on. My 4-year-old would know this is espionage. James A. Lewis, a cybersecurity researcher at the Center for European Policy Analysis in Washington, said, quote, only a handful of countries could pull off such an operation, including, I love how they always put Russia first, including Russia, China, and Israel. They sneak that one in at the backside of this.
Argentina could as well, but that's not top of our priority. There's lots of hackers in Argentina.
Even though Israel is on the record from the Secret Service having been caught red-handed before. Israel accused of planting spy devices near the White House. Surveillance devices planted over the past 2 years, according to the Secret Service, have been planted mobile phones, spying devices near the White House and other sensitive locations around the U.S. Capitol. That's why John Kiriakou, friend of the show, former CIA agent, told us, he said, oh, yeah, it's well known. Like, you never, ever meet with Mossad agents or anybody inside of the CIA headquarters. You always meet in a location outside because they can't be trusted. They've always got the listening devices on them. Is it just part of like spy games? I don't know. Let's ask. Nate Kane is a cybersecurity expert, FBI whistleblower. During the 2016 election, Nate blew the whistle on the agency covering up for Hillary Clinton. Oh, they didn't like that. He was punished. He was raided. They raided his house, and they bankrupted him by the DOJ. Now, we've had Nate on the show before, and we're thrilled to have Nate back here. Nate, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So what do you make of this? When you first read this report, like, did your spidey sense go off in any kind of direction?
You know, my first thought was actually not a spy operation. I actually thought, this is where all those calls are coming that say they're from the United States, but they're really from some scam artist in some other country, because that is one of the ways that these things are used. But what makes this unique is, of course, its proximity to the UN. The fact that you had this raid in the first place indicates that there has been, or that there was some SIGINT intelligence, that was used in order to identify these people. They're being very quiet about, who it is, about what they know, obviously, but there's enough information there, I think, that indicates that this is a foreign state actor that was utilizing this. Now, there is some issues with disruption that could happen, because when you have this number of SIM cards running in these SIM servers, they basically have the ability to be able to do what's called a denial of service attack. And so that is a threat. But I think a bigger threat is what they call SIM spoofing. And if that is what they are looking at in terms of being able to, spy on people who are there at the General Assembly, which, by the way, one of the biggest things that I consider a threat to this country is the fact that the UN is within our borders. I think that is a big threat, because all of the people who come here are covered under diplomatic protection. And so they basically are walking around there in New York, and they're able to get away with all kinds of things. So if you notice, they did not announce that there were any arrests made. And I'm betting that it's probably because there is a nation state involved. And so they have to be very careful about how they handle that.
Wow.
Okay.
That's why there's no arrests made. A great point.
I mean, I saw this yesterday and thought, why is the Secret Service announcing this? Why wouldn't the FBI be in charge? So how do you think
could the NSA or yeah.
How do you think?
That's a very good question. So that is a very pointed question, because the fact is that the Secret Service has a number of jobs, but one of the jobs that they are involved with, now they mentioned in a news article that there were known criminal organizations that were involved. So it could be that there was money laundering that was involved with this somehow, because one of the things that the Secret Service is involved with is dealing with money laundering and dealing with those U.S. Treasury issues, because they actually fall under well, they did, but they still have a mission that is dedicated to that. So that is a possibility that there's more to this involving money laundering. So I am curious about that, why the Secret Service and not, some other agency.
Yes, I'm wearing my bearskin hoodie. I just had to walk the dog, and it's actually pretty cold out here in the Rocky Mountains, and it's pouring down rain as we speak. So I was outside in my bearskin hoodie trying to keep warm and walking the dog before the show. And bearskin hoodie is is now my favorite hoodie, by the way. These guys are fantastic. Smart people are locking in their winter gear right now. In fact, right before the show, we were all talking on the staff here. All the men on the staff were saying, yeah, I want to get one of these. I want to get one of these. And so you can right now, and you can get 60% off only if you get your hoodie early. All you need to do is text the word redacted to 36912. Or if you want to go to the website, you can do that too, which is bear.skin/redacted. Get 70% off. These things are like a tank. Plus, it zips right into the heavy storm rain jacket to become 100% waterproof. So Natalie was like, ooh, you got caught in a rainstorm just a few minutes ago. I was like, yes, I did. But I was totally dry because I had the outer rain shell right on there, the soft shell. So anyway, go there right now. Text the word redacted, 36912, to lock in your 60% off again, 36912. So what would be the goal here? Because I'm looking at, in journalism, I'm asking the who, what, why, where, and how questions. Why? What's the goal here?
Well, he said sim spoofing is a type of where you get a mirror of somebody's phone.
So
right?
is that the whole goal? But you're like 30 miles away too. I think this location was not like adjacent, right? From what I understand. Sure. So is it able to pull that off from that far away?
It's hard to know. I mean, the reality is that this is the problem, is that this kind of a thing is there are legitimate uses for a SIM server. For example, SIM servers are, they're hardware systems that manage multiple SIM cards remotely. They often are used by businesses for cost-efficient communications. They handle bulk SMS, VoIP calls, data services, bypassing those traditional rates that they would pay to, any telecom company. So there are legitimate uses here, but the fact that they rated them, I think it has less to do with proximity, more to do with the likelihood that there is some sort of criminal enterprise that's going on, and that there may be transactions that are being done using these SIM cards in order to bypass any kind of surveillance. Obviously, They got caught, so there are surveillance means of being able to find these things. I can't get into those, but I will say that it does appear that there was intelligence that was used. Now, you got to think about it, right? So when we use intelligence services within the borders of the United States, there's very, very strict rules on that. But because of its proximity to the UN General Assembly, that may have been how they got caught. So it may have nothing to do with that. It may just be simply a criminal enterprise used for scamming people out of millions of dollars and making it look like these phone calls are coming from, a location here when they're really coming from overseas. Or it very well could be used, as some sort of, plot to cripple cellular communications, or doing some sort of spoofing so that they can spy on, calls for, all these diplomats that are there. But here's another possibility. It may be that they utilized the national security angle in order to be able to find these guys. And what it really is just nothing more than a bunch of scammers set up with a massive, SIM farm.
Because they're near the UN, it can fall under the umbrella of
exactly
some sort of foreign agents or some sort of foreign surveillance program. Which I know a number of FBI was.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to say, and and I know that, like, when you look at, there are legitimate uses for this type of technology, but it's really, really hard to be able to know for sure. Now, they've captured all of these, and they're probably going through them. So what will be interesting is to see if there are any indictments. If there are no indictments, then that tells me something.
How long would it take for it? You've been around this world for a long time. How long would it take for an indictment?
Well, it depends, right? If it's somebody they don't want to indict, they'll just run out the clock and and we'll never see it. It'll get buried. I mean, that's what what they've done in the past. If it's something that they really want to act on quickly, I mean, it's all depends on, the U.S. attorneys and what they'll do. I mean, it really, it's all political. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, I guess one other thing is that they're talking about a nation state. Like, why can't we name names here? I mean, who has a history of doing this? We know China. With solar panels
Iran,
and
I mean, there's a lot of countries that have the capability, and a lot of a lot of countries that, and it could be also, this is another thought too, is that I highly doubt that a nation state was here operating on our soil doing this. They're likely working with a criminal organization. You may have had some group that was already running, a SIM farm essentially for, being able to do scammer calls and that kind of thing. And they may have picked up some signals intelligence of communications going on with a nation state and these guys in order to contract their services. See, this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand about the whole world of cybersecurity, which, this of course falls into that as well. And that is that a lot of times there are criminal organizations that are actually building the malware, that are building the SIM farms and all of those types of things. So, and they utilize them as kind of like a buffer. So they have a, somebody between them and, and their target. So I think that's probably the case here. But I mean, you've got countries like, so it doesn't, so the notion that, what country could do this, it doesn't matter, because these countries can utilize, these essentially these criminal organizations to do their dirty work. We see this all the time with malicious code. Malicious code gets developed by, there's a lot of countries within the, Eastern European bloc, in fact, that do a lot of what they call polymorphic code development. And they don't have any care whatsoever about the politics of any nation. They're just purely looking at it at the money. And but this is one of those things that could also, like I said, you have to look at who has the interest, in what exactly, was their plan? Was there, were they planning some sort of, attack to disable, the phone network, the telecom network? And I mean, that seems to be what they're indicating. So we don't know what that intelligence entails, but it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. A couple countries that come to mind is, of course, China, Russia, obviously, and I'm talking about far as like malicious type stuff. If it's just spying, then there's a whole different set of countries, right? But, Venezuela is another big one. There's a lot of stuff going on right now between Venezuela and the U.S., and so I wouldn't be surprised if they were involved as well. But you also have things that I've seen, at least in the past, where it appeared that there were nations working together. So I'm really curious about this one.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a great point about the indictment piece. Like, we'll be watching to see if we hear anything about this. So let us know. Keep us in the loop, Nate. If you learn it before we do, we'd love to have you back on and analyze this, because I would certainly be curious about that. Someone in our chat room, Penguin Shoes, says the ringleader was a Nigerian prince, but you have to wire them. That's exactly right. A Nigerian prince needs you to wire money to them immediately. Nate, great to see you.
While we're on our show, I just got a text from Clara asking, "Is this phone still belong to Amy?" The classic like start the scam thing. I wonder if Clara was in there too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I get all sorts of spam messages telling me that I've just run a red light and the DMV is coming after me and is going to suspend my driver's license.
That's the and by the way, so when they do that, that is a perfect example. So a lot of people, when you're getting all this spam that's coming to you, right, on your phone, spam SMS messages, that is being done through these types of operations. So that's why I'm saying the likelihood of this actually not being owned and operated by a nation state is probably very high. It's probably a criminal enterprise, but I'm guessing that, our methods of monitoring communications caught a nation state, basically contracting these guys out to do some work for them.
Wow.
That's my best
Just for the
guess.
record, I don't even leave the house. So for me to run a red light is very...
I always respond to those with a middle finger emoji. Clayton's like, "Why don't you delete it?" I'm like, "Because I want them to know."
I know, but I'm like, now you're letting them know that this is a live phone number.
That's right. That's exactly the truth. The moment you respond, now they know that now you go in their database permanently.
Right. But then I delete it and block the number, but I can't help myself.
There we go.
Now there's a middle finger icon and all of there. Nate, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it today. Thanks again, Nate. Great to see you.
Take care.